So those of you that sat through my technical preparations have seen half this slide deck already. So, hello, my name's Joe Kennard, one of the founders of PurpleMedia. Over the years, we've attended lots of these kind of events, and I used to look at those poor people trying to train sort of systems-based things in seminars like this and thought, oh, those poor guys. And I'm now that guy. So welcome to my presentation about our new edit system. First of all, a little bit of context. So those of you that know PurpleMedia know that we are a bespoke-based learning provider. In essence, we produce content which is entirely built from the ground up. So I'll play a few examples of things that we've done. I'm sure many of you use rapid build tools, authoring tools as part of your job, and that's absolutely fine, and they work very well, and in certain contexts can be a fantastic solution. In fact, we work with some partners where we provide assets and graphics to help bring to life content built in that way. But often there's really no substitute for something that's built from the thought process forward. So really, rather than basing your ideas around pre-existing templates or interactions that you've been provided with, really thinking about who is the audience, what is it that they are trying to learn about, what's the story you're trying to tell, and increasingly what devices are they using to experience your content, and really emphasizing that experience. And if you build bespoke content, you've got that complete freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do. Increasingly, as we move into a mobile environment as well, it's more and more challenging to get your vision to work on the devices that you want it to work on. And even with tools that are around, built for that purpose, there's lots of challenges. Previewing can be hard. Sometimes things that look great when you're doing it on your PC, when you actually preview and look at it on the device, aren't working the way you expect. Or interactions that are set up that look like they're going to work brilliantly on mobile, don't, because the form factor isn't suited for that purpose. And of course, building for mobile is very much not taking this and making it smaller. So if we're going to build for mobile, whoops. We like to do that in a way that's really built for mobile first, which is almost impossible to do really reliably and well unless you build it as an app or as a distinct piece of work for that purpose. And there's an example of a couple of projects that we've built in that way. But of course, there's always a bit of a trade-off, and clients have come to us in the past and said, that's great, that's exactly what we want, but then what happens afterwards? Are we left with a piece of work that's not updatable? Are we left with a piece of work that every time we want to change some text, we're going to have to come back to you guys and get you to build it all again? And often we do that free of charge anyway, but it's not so much that, it's also the time, the engagement. You want to make a quick edit, you can't. And then there's the kind of ongoing control of being in control of your own stuff once it's delivered. Now, ironically, I would say in our experience, probably 80 to 90% of stuff never needs changing anyway, and actually often things, once they're built, are fit for a particular campaign or a limited interaction time, or just very stable pieces of content that don't require regular updating. Or sometimes, by the time something does need updating, there's loads of things you want to update. Times have changed, perhaps there's new interactivity, new devices, maybe your brand has changed, so then it's worth revisiting the whole thing. But still, there are times when editing is a need. And actually not just for content changes, but as we'll look at later, for reviewing and for translations. And translation deployment can be really difficult if you can't just quickly, locally, make tweaks and changes in your local market or to audiences that are doing that local language review. So we've developed some functionality. I'll put this into context. What this is for is if we're working with you on a project and delivering you with assets that we are developing on your behalf and then giving you to then run and manage, you then have the ability to take that piece of work, edit and update it as you need to. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the flexibility of the build and all the innovation that we can offer, but you also get the comfort factor of knowing that once we've delivered something to you, you can update it and refresh it going forward. So like I said, the tool is an edit tool, but actually is useful for three main areas, and I'll run them through with you one by one. So first of all, actually for reviews, not editing at all, but just simply if you want to pass the content around during the development phase. Right, here's where I had the technical troubles. Perfect. So this is a piece of work we developed for a client a couple of years ago now. I'm just going to pause it for a second. I'm going to show this project because it's one that we've taken through a complete life cycle. So this was delivered for mobile primarily, it was delivered in English. We've since translated and updated the content, deployed it to about 9-10 different markets in a variety of languages, from Chinese through to English through to Spanish. And at every phase, this editing functionality has kind of been built in. So how does it work? Okay, the little icon at the bottom is the edit tool icon. Navigate to a place within the content where you want to make a comment during the review phase, and this mirrors content editing functionality that you've probably seen on authoring tools, where you can collaboratively work on a project together, make and share your comments as you go through the process. So you'll see here, somebody's made a comment, put their name in, raise the issue that they want to raise in relation to that page, and then once they've stored that comment, every time someone goes to that page during the review process, they'll be able to check and look back on the comments that have been made. So the second button in there is an Issues tab. You can see that issue's been logged. And there's a few little developer tools that we put into the side, so you can see, as we go through the process of reviewing and solving those questions and those comments, whether they've been corrected, whether they've been updated, what action's been taken. And the comments are context sensitive, so obviously they only appear on the page at which the content relates. Now, all of this stuff works on mobile too, so it's really helpful when you're testing on multiple mobile devices, because your edit and comment tool is there on the device you're making the review in. So you've got no need to review something on a PC, test separately, it's all integrated. So that's the simplest of the functions. That's something that you're probably familiar with. The next area where this is useful is for translation. Who here is involved with translating for different markets or different audiences in their work? Okay. Translation is a complex and fraught process. And what normally happens is, you get your translation from the translation agency or your own in-house people, whoever you use. That's fantastic. Then you send it out to your local market, and the guys out in Spain or in Singapore or China or wherever go, that's not how we speak. And particularly if you've got a tone of voice, most companies and brands have their way of communicating, particularly if you're in a technical field. Skills training is a classic, where it's not so much about what you're saying, but it's actually how you're saying it, the language you're using, and the way you're expressing what you're saying. So there's always a process whereby you've got your beautifully translated content, and in fact we're going through this process right at this moment, and you want to give that to your local market to have a look at, to make their comments. So you can do just that. You can go in and you can click on, when you get to the page you want to comment on, click on the icon and make change requests. But what you'll see in a second, when you've got to a page that you want to edit, you can actually just go directly in there and make those changes. So as you scroll through to the Edit tab, all the text elements are represented in a dialog box. Again, you can access that on mobile as much as you can on other devices. And you can literally just go directly in there, make the change, and it's published onto the piece. Similarly, you can just make regular comments like, do we need to change this, do we need to change that? You don't have to be editing as such, but it allows you to quickly deploy out to local markets. They can make their changes, none of this toing and froing with spreadsheets and all the rest of it to get that to work. That's a very small function of the editing facility, but we found for language deployment, it's a really effective and helpful way of delivering. But actually, what if you want to do full-on editing? So we've just shown you some quick tips and things using the pop-up tool. If you want to edit something and do that in a more complex way, so you can see the same course content up on the left. There's actually a console which we suggest using for desktop interaction. Again, you can see the different areas of text displayed within the pop-up console. But obviously it's much easier to make those changes on a desktop environment on two screens. Now, in addition to making those text amendments, you can also change assets within the course. So where you've got imagery, where you've got video, other forms of content, they can be swapped in and out. You can either find something on your own laptop that you've got as a local file that you wish to change, or you can use other elements that are already within the course, and there's a library of all the assets that are in the course if you wish to move something from one page to another or swap things around. The way that this is working is essentially you've got two mirrored versions of the same course. So you've got an editable version, and then you've got your published version. So once you're happy and you've launched it, popped it onto your learning management system or wherever it is that users are going to access that content from, that's a stable piece of content. But your edit version is hosted either locally to yourselves or with us, and you make changes on that version. We've shown live changes being made, but you can also have those queued up and then reviewed by an administrator and use a publish functionality just to publish all the changes that you've agreed to make and pass them right the way through to the course. And then once you're happy that those changes on the edit version are as you want to make them, one button mirrors those changes across to your published course. So internally, it's a very seamless process to update. You don't have to change the file that's on your LMS. You don't have to worry about losing any user data or changing any of the course files that you have stored. And it's basically as simple as that. As we develop the process, there'll be more and more editable functionality. As we develop content with our clients, obviously we decide which bits are most likely to be edited, and page layout would be designed in that way. Particularly when you're editing for mobile, the ability to test as you do on different devices allows you to format the text in a way that's appropriate. And if you were to enter content that was larger than the available space, obviously it falls back to things like scroll bars and things, so you can be sure that everything will go in there that you wish to have in there. And if you wish, you can also actually just insert your own language files automatically. So if you are working with translated JSON or XLIF files, you can actually also manage that process yourself, publishing out to different languages. And that's basically it, short and sweet. If you've got any questions about the functionality, its application, or would like to talk about the way it works, we're just on stand 32, which is just behind here. I'll be welcome to take any questions now if anyone has any, or come and chat to us and we can show you some work on the stand. Done. Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it.